I lecture at you for 3 hours. I've broken down my whole how to adult into a couple sections: credit, finances, organizations, things I wish I learned sooner, and then entrepreneurialism. So please interrupt if you have questions, raise your hand, drop them in the chat, whatever. Um, Definitely want this to be more of a discussion than than me just talking for 3 hours. So feel free to chime in at any point. Let me share my screen and this one and share sound and make sure I can see you guys. Okay. So first things first, there is a assignment on Canvas that just opened up. It is basically saying, take something that you have learned, something that has resonated with you, and share it with me on Canvas. So it can be a couple bullet points. It can be a paragraph. It can be whatever you want. Doesn't have to be super in-depth. It can be super in-depth. The main reason I'm doing this is to show the importance of taking notes, right? Because you will sit through hours and hours and hours of meetings as a developer, and some of them you're going to be sitting through them and being like, dear God, why am I in this meeting? I have learned nothing, I have contributed nothing, and I'm just here to be a bobblehead, right? I'm just here to nod along and agree with everything. Then there will be the flip side of those meetings where you are being interrogated the whole time. You cannot wait for the 30 minutes to be over. Everything thrown your way is another item that you need to work on, and you are going to need to write notes as quickly as possible because there is just so much that you need to do after that meeting. And if you forget any of them, you feel like that entire meeting was a waste because you know you talked about it, but you didn't capture it in your notes. We want to avoid that as much as possible, right? And so knowing what the outcomes of the meeting are before the meeting starts are important. In this case, it is, hey, I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff your way. And some of the stuff you're going to be like, shh, been doing that my whole life. Like, that's nothing new. And there will be other things in here where you're like, oh, I never thought of it like that. So take something that you are learning from this, share it with me in Canvas, and you'll get points on the grade. Let me stop the share for 1 second. I do want to share these slides with you as a PDF. These slides are now in Slack in case you want to follow along on your own instead of doing it in the screen share. Any questions about the Canvas assignment? Don't write an essay unless you really feel like an essay is going to help you. Just share a couple things, bullet points, that's totally fine. Okay, first things first, credit. Credit, I feel, is one of those things that is probably the most understood because it's never taught, right? And once you understand credit, it becomes a lot more a lot less thing to be feared. So your credit report, first of all, your credit score and your credit report are not the same thing. We hear about those talked about all the time. It used to be that you had to pay for your credit score, but you could get your credit report free once a year. And you could get it from your 3 different credit reporting agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And so a lot of people would spread them out and get one report every 4 months. And then once you got your report, they would try and sell you on like a $25 or $40 upcharge to get your credit score. Well, now a lot of banks and credit cards and different businesses that you do business with will give you your credit score for free. So that is can be really powerful. Credit scores are kind of weird. They range from 350 up to traditionally 850. Some of them now go to 900, which is weird. But your credit score is broken down into 35% of your payment history, That means that 35% of your credit score cannot be changed instantaneously. That is built on all of your history going back for several years. 30% is how much you owe. And that does not mean the more you owe, the worse your credit is. In fact, your credit score actually goes up when you have some accounts on it, right? So there are different types of credit, which we will get into in a second. There is considered good credit and bad credit. 10% is your credit mix, which is based off of that. Do you have a mortgage and a student loan and a car loan, all of which are considered better debt? Or do you have a bunch of credit card debt and personal loans and high interest loans and that kind of stuff, which is considered bad debt? The length of your credit history, once you get up to, I think it's 7+ years of credit history, that's when you get the maximum points of about 15%. And then new credit. How often are you opening new accounts? All of that. All of that contributes into your credit score. You can get your credit report for free at annualcreditreport.com. This is a federal website. This is the only website that you can get your credit score, and they will not try and get more money out of you. It used to be, like I said, that you could only get it once a year from all 3 agencies. For some reason, during the pandemic, they said you can get your credit report as much as you would like. And then I think someone forgot about that change, and it's still staying that way. So very good idea to get your credit report and get it from all 3 agencies. While the information will be similar on all 3 of them, there's a crazy number. I think it's like 20 to 30% of people have something wrong on their credit report that isn't anything that they did. It's like someone else may have the same name as you. Wires got crossed at some point. There is now wrong information on your credit report, and because of that, you are less likely to qualify for new credit in the future. When you get into a mortgage, it causes all kinds of issues, all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't gotten your credit report recently, it is worth going to that website. They'll take your social, they'll take your current address, they'll take your previous address if you've moved in the past 2 years. And then all 3 agencies will ask you these security questions that are super annoying. And it's going to be like, what town was this street name in? And it's some like previous address that you've lived at. Or what range is your monthly car payment in? And they give you like 4 options, and you go, oh, my car payment's $250 a month, so I pick $225 to $275. Or it will be like, which one of these people do you know? And your parents' name will be in the list. They're kind of weird questions. They're generated off of information the credit agencies have access to. So you fill that out, download your PDF, save those 3 PDFs. It will just come up as a website, but there's an option to either print or download the PDF, save all 3 of them, because once you close that web page, you cannot get that report back up. And it used to be that you would have to wait an entire year to get it. Now you can just go through the process again and download it, but save yourself the trouble, download it as a PDF. Hopefully that will be helpful to reference down the road. And oftentimes the information on the report, you have to dig into a little bit or write a dispute letter if there's something on there that doesn't line up. Read through the whole report, see what doesn't make sense. There are all different kinds of categories on your report. The most important will be delinquencies, which we will get to in a second. But read through everything, make sure everything lines up. If there are accounts that you are not familiar with, call that company. Oftentimes they have some weird name on them. For example, I've got an Amazon store card and it's done through Synchrony Bank. And so when I go through my credit report, I'm like, who the hell is Sync Credit? And you like call the 800 number that's listed on the report, and it's like, welcome to the Amazon store card powered by Synchrony Credit. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's legitimate. But go through it. The more important thing is figuring out what doesn't line up, what accounts you don't recognize on there, if there are any, and making sure that you start working through the delinquency section if there are any on there. You can dispute. You have to file a dispute with all of the individual credit agencies. That means that if there is wrong information on your TransUnion and Experian report, you have to write a letter to TransUnion. You have to write a letter to Experian, dispute that, say, hey, I don't recognize this account. I haven't opened this. They will get back to you with any information you need. And over time, eventually that information will get removed from your report. Like I said, it's like 20% of all credit reports have some inaccurate information on it. Previous addresses are kind of fine to let die, but anything other than a previous address, you really should bring up a dispute with the credit agency. Credit reports are used all over the place. Sometimes employers will pull them before you start working for the company. It is frequent that landlords will pull them. And then it isn't just about, oh, I'm not using any credit right now, so my credit report isn't important, because down the road at some point you will probably use credit, whether that's a mortgage for buying a house, no matter how many years down the road that is. Your credit report can have years and years of credit history. Important to get that resolved. It could be for credit cards, which are super empowering. I make hundreds of dollars a year from my credit card rewards, probably close to 1,000. But that is only because I have built up my credit over time and know how to use it responsibly, which we're going to touch on in a second. It could be for a medical bill. Believe it or not, you could be in a doctor's office and they can pull your credit and say, hey, we can do this surgery or this procedure or whatever it is, but you got to be able to finance it. Credit is your best friend when you need money and don't have that money to spend right now. So getting a jump start on your credit, starting to either build it or repair it, a very, very good idea. And then finally, delinquencies. This is probably the most important thing that you want to repair. This is, hey, I didn't pay a bill. Believe it or not, I have seen things. National Grid, for some reason, when you cancel your National Grid account, they also cancel your auto pay. And then they send the utility bill to your address where you're canceling service, i.e. where you're moving out of. And then the post office, for some reason, isn't allowed to forward that bill. So I have a friend who was paid every bill, always on top of everything, and actually got a delinquency on her credit report because that final bill was not auto-paid and was not forwarded to her in the mail. Super, super stupid. But because of that, oftentimes a credit card will look at your credit report and say, you didn't pay some bill. Because of that, we're not going to give you a credit card. So a delinquency, sometimes it is also called a charge-off, is when National Grid says, we're done trying to get a hold of you, we're done trying to get you to pay this bill, we're going to sell your debt to a collection agency. And everyone has probably gotten one or two of those scam calls of like, hey, this is now in collections. What they have basically said is National Grid sells your debt to this collection company and says, hey, if you can get a hold of this person and get the money, that's great. But we're going to sell you, let's say, $100 bill. They're only going to pay $5 or $10 for them to get that. And then if the collection agency gets the full $100 from you, they are very happy about that because they just made $90 on them actually collecting that money for you. So what a lot of people don't know is that you can negotiate with a collection agency. You can say, hey, I just don't have that money right now. Can you work with me? Can I come up with a payment plan with you? And the first thing they're going to do is say, sure, you can pay that $100 off over the next 6 months. And they just divide it by 6 and give you that plan. And you can say, look, this was an old debt. I don't know that I completely agree with it. Would you agree to me paying $50 right now instead of me having to pay $100 over the next 6 months? And it sounds horrible, but you have to haggle with them sometimes. So if you have anything in delinquencies, you definitely want to deal with it. And that delinquency can stay on your credit report for 7 years. So if you plan on using your credit at any point in the next 7 years, it is a really, really good idea to work with the credit agency, even if it's on a payment plan to try and get that off your credit report. Come up with a plan of attack. If you have a couple of delinquencies, that's fine. You don't need to pay them all off all at once. If you have a windfall payment, for example, if you file your tax return and have $1,000, it can be a great idea to take that money and pay that any delinquencies off on your credit report. Really work with that. Try and clean up your history. Any questions on credit report? Has anyone looked at their credit report in the past year? Good couple head nods. Corbin. Oh, it's just
Oh
raising
no,
your hand.
I was yeah.
Gotcha. Yep, pulling your credit report, even if there aren't any surprises on it, good adult thing to do. Check it once a year. Doing it on New Year's is not a bad idea. Just making sure there's no false information in there. Even if you aren't paying, even if you're planning on using using your credit, good idea to make sure everything is in ship shape. Okay. Protecting your credit. Most important thing you can do is freeze your credit. A credit freeze basically says no one is allowed to apply for any credit in my name or add anything new to my credit report other than accounts that are already open until I unfreeze my credit. Believe it or not, we've all heard about identity fraud. It is becoming more and more likely that your social security number has leaked at some point, whether that is a company that had a database that got hacked, whether that is filling out a form and it happened to be sitting on an office desk and someone walked by and saw your social, all different kinds of identity theft. So unfortunately, you have to freeze your credit at all 3 credit agencies. Fortunately, they've gotten much better. You can now create an online account or fill out a form online and freeze your credit. That will prevent anyone from applying for credit under your name or using your Social Security falsely. It is now free to freeze your credit and to unfreeze your credit. Please, for the love of God, save your password, because once you freeze your credit, you need your password to unfreeze your credit, which you will need to do at some point in your life. So make sure you save your password. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about password managers and how to save your password securely. Make sure you save that or the PIN number that it generates when you freeze your credit. You also need to know that you have to unfreeze your credit. So sometimes you'll be, you get a salesperson coming over and they're like, oh, you can finance this option. And you're like, okay, that's what I want to do. I've been building my credit. You can ask them, hey, when you do a credit check, do you do it with TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax? If they tell you which one of those 3 it is, you can just go unfreeze it at just that one agency. You don't have to do it at all 3. You also, sorry, I'm just seeing the chat. Let me catch up on that in 1 second. If they don't know which one it is, you can unfreeze it at all 3, which isn't as painful as it sounds, as long as you have your passwords remembered or stored somewhere. And then the other thing you can do is, they call it scheduling a thaw, where you can say, hey, I want to unfreeze my credit, but just starting today up until 2 weeks from now, right? That gives whoever's pulling your credit plenty of time to process that, and then it will automatically refreeze for you. The other nice thing is all 3 agencies are like instantaneous in scheduling a thaw. I've literally had, I'm getting new windows put in and financed it. And I literally was like sitting at my dining room table and scheduled the thaw, and he hit the button 60 seconds later and it immediately went through. If someone does try to pull your credit, and you don't get the chance to unfreeze it first, you got to go unfreeze it, and then you tell them, hey, just go, please rerun my credit. I've scheduled the thaw, and they'll be able to pull it right out. But it is a great security mechanism. I wish, honestly, everyone's credit started frozen, and then when you learned how to use your credit, you would learn how to unfreeze it, just because it gives you control over your credit history. So I think that everyone personally should freeze their credit, because you can just unfreeze it whenever you're applying for new credit, and it won't affect any credit that you already have open, any credit cards, any accounts, anything like that. There's a difference between a soft pull and a hard pull. When you access your credit report, it will not affect your credit score. However, when you apply for new credit, that is what is called a hard pull. Whoever is pulling your credit to review it has to report into the agency, hey, this person is asking for new credit. We don't want to see more than 2 hard pulls a year. We're basically saying the banks basically don't like to see someone who is applying for a ton of new credit all at once. That is different than a soft pull on your credit report, which is someone like a bank saying, hey, I'm curious to see if this person has good credit, but because they aren't asking me, they're not directly applying for a new credit card or a new loan or anything like that, they can do what is called a soft pull, which is reviewing your credit history. They get all the same information, but it doesn't affect your credit score. Getting your annual credit report is not a soft or a hard pull. You always have the right to get access to your credit report. It never affects your score. A hard pull is the only thing that affects your score, and that is whenever you apply for new credit. Oops. Let me catch up in the chat here. Taylor, we were going to talk about what to do if you don't have any credit history, because there are free ways of starting to generate your credit history that can really be beneficial for when you do need it down the road. Utilities aren't actually reported on your credit report, believe it or not. So utilities are not always the best way. Unfortunately, utilities are a double-edged sword. If you pay your bill on time, your utilities will not be on your credit report, but the second that you miss a payment on your utility bill, bam, they are allowed to put that on your credit report as a delinquency, which is super, super dumb and I think should be illegal, but that is sometimes the case. Taylor, I agree with you. I'm going to give you an option in a second based off your most recent comment. And not having good credit is not the end of the world. What is important, though, is that you start working on or building your credit. And some people are in a situation where they're like, I literally have $0, right? Like, I've got these delinquencies on my credit report. There is nothing I can do with them. I am at the end of my budget. Okay, don't start working on your credit then, right? Working on your credit is something that takes time, but credit is all about being able to pay off your debts, right? The only way to build credit is to pay off the debt that you're using your credit for. Don't stress yourself out. If there's no money, if there's no budget to work on your credit report, that's okay. But at some point, you are going to have some money coming in, right? Whether that is a tax refund, whether that is hopefully a new development job, whether that is, just a promotion at work, something to keep in the back of your head of it is okay to put your credit on pause if you don't have anything that you can do to make your credit better. But we're going to talk about little ways of improving it other than just the delinquencies of paying those off. A hard pull will stay on your credit report for 2 years. It only affects your credit score for 1 year, which is kind of weird how they do that. And it can be 5 to 25 points a pull. So you do want to be careful about how often you're applying for credit. Any questions so far?
I don't have a question, but more of kind of a statement. I've
Yeah.
noticed that like even like some jobs want to access your credit, and I don't agree with that because my work ethic is not dependent upon things or struggles that, may have happened in the past that caused the credit to be. I mean, prior to me purchasing the house, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know much about credit in my teenage years, going into college, etc.,
Yes.
and like how it could affect you in the long run. So when I got ready to buy my house, I did have to take like a year or so to kind of clean up my credit, rebuild the credit, clean it up, and then rebuild it. Um, but like that, I just don't like, I don't understand. I don't know how those two things go together as far as like well, if I had the occupation, then I can clean up the credit. But a lot of people do pull it. And even that with like sometimes even with housing, like I can see how you want to pull somebody's credit to rent to them. But at the same time, people tend to pay where they live to keep a roof over their head before they're going to pay a medical bill. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And there is some new legislation and newer scoring models that aren't allowed to factor medical bills into your credit score anymore, which is a huge improvement. But I agree with you on the employer side. I don't think that as someone who is involved in a company, we personally don't pool our employees' credits. And I think that you can also mention that, like, if you are working at a workplace where they go, sorry, this is just policy, we pool all of our new employees' credits. Just be like, okay, well, can I also submit a statement because like I know what's on my credit report, right? And I've worked on that. Or I'm hoping to deal with that stuff. So you can always unless it's some kind of automated system, which hiring usually is not, um, you can work on that, right? And you can make a statement. But I think that what you said is really important, Tara. Like it took you a year to clean up your credit, right? It took you a year. And that is all what credit is. It's not just about your score in the moment, it's about your entire history of payments. And starting to kind of draw a line in the sand and then say, okay, I need to, from this point forward, be more financially responsible and say that if I'm taking on any debt, I'm going to work on making sure that that is paid off on time. Then, once I get into that good habit, I can start looking at my monthly budget. I can start looking at what money's coming in, and I can start chipping away at those delinquencies because over time, all those delinquencies are going to be removed from your credit report, and your score is going to, I promise you, skyrocket. As soon as you get those delinquencies off your report, um, your score can go up as much as 1 to 200 points. It can like literally just exponentially shoot up. So it is important to work through them over time. Building credit takes time. So does resolving poor credit and working through your report and working through your debts.
Yeah, and even when you make those payments with collection agencies, I learned that it was good to, I don't know if you guys covered this before I logged in, but also ask them, can it be once it's paid off, can it be removed from the credit report, or how quickly can it be removed from the credit report, to even not for it not to just show paid, but for them to actually remove it, even if you have to write them and ask them formally to remove it from the credit report.
Absolutely. And it has to be the collection agency or whoever the delinquency is with to remove it. You can't write to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax and say, like, hey, I paid this off. Can you remove it for me? They're going to be like, no, that's not what a dispute is for. The dispute is for inaccurate information, but it's technically not inaccurate to keep that delinquency on your report because it will be reported as paid. So you do have to ask the collection agency, as far as I understand, to have them remove it. But very, very good advice. Any other advice, Tara, from your credit cleaning journey that you want to share with other students?
Um, Not at the moment. I'll probably think of some other stuff as we go through this. It wasn't a very aggressive um time period though with removing some of the old, and yes, asking the collection agencies directly, like when negotiating the terms of the debt and what can be paid off, etc., so that it shows and that it removes. And some of them say they can and some of them say they can't, but just making sure that that is discussed during the time of negotiation with the debt.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Feel free to keep on throwing things in the chat or come off mute and chime in, because you all have experiences, right? And I think sharing them with each other is super important. Okay, what about building your credit? One great option is a secured credit card. So a secured credit card seems like I don't want to say a pyramid scheme, but it seems a little weird. So the way a secured credit card works is you take $250 or $500 and you give that to the bank. And the bank says, great, you have no credit history or a terrible credit history, but because you literally just gave us, let's say, $500 cash, we believe that you're going to pay us back. And you're like, of course I'm going to pay you back. You have $500 of mine, right? First of all, don't use a sleazy bank. If you have a local bank that offers a secured credit card, that's great. But there are a ton of banks that will try and get you. My first card was with Discover. I really recommend them. They try and work with you. You don't need to put a ton of money on the account. You can do 100 or 250, I think 100 is the minimum. But that is your place to start building credit. You give them the money, they give you a credit limit of however much money you gave them, and then at the end of 6 months or a year, they look back and say, hey, you paid this off on time, you did good work, we're going to give you your full $500 back, and we're going to switch you from a secured credit card to a real credit card, where we don't have any of your money, we give you the credit limit, you charge to it, you pay it off every month, and you're good to go. The number one advice that I have here is treat your secured credit card like a debit card. Your credit card, it is a myth that you can only pay your credit card once a month. You can pay your credit card up to every day if you wanted to, secured or unsecured credit cards, and never buy something that you can't pay off. Chances are, if you need a secured credit card, your credit was not great to get started. There is something that you did wrong with your credit history that you are now trying to remedy. So when you buy something, try and shoot to buy something once a month, and it could be something as small as a pack of gum at the grocery store, at the gas station. It could be a tank of gas. It could be something that you would already be paying for otherwise. Put it on your credit card. And then as soon as that charge posts in 2 or 3 days, go in and pay it off. Get in a habit of paying it off every Friday, get in the habit of paying it off every other Friday. You don't have to wait to get your statement, but you want to start putting some charges on that and then paying it off. Keep your credit utilization under 20%. This goes for not just secured credit cards, but real credit cards as well, unsecured credit cards. Banks want to see that you're using a little bit of credit, but not too much credit. And so when you get your first credit card, it may have a $5,000 credit limit. And you're like, woohoo, going to the mall, I'm going on a shopping spree, right? Well, you always have to pay that off. So if you start thinking about your credit card as, hey, credit is kind of, I don't want to call it a necessary evil, but credit is an important thing of being an adult. But I need to use it responsibly. I'm never going to spend more than what 20% of my credit limit is. That will make your credit score skyrocket, because banks are saying, hey, I'm trusting this person to spend $5,000 and all they're spending is 1,000 of it, or less than 1,000 of it a month. And because they're paying that off every month, all of a sudden, they know, hey, this person is in a good habit of using their credit wisely. The other really smart thing to do is set up an auto payment. And even if you can't pay the full amount, set up an auto pay for the minimum payment due. then get in the habit of going in and making the full payment, but making sure that you've got an auto payment set up for at least the minimum payment due means that you won't have a late payment you won't have a late payment fee, and you won't have a late payment on your credit report. So it is a really good idea to set up an auto pay just for the minimum payment due, and then still pay the full statement balance. We're going to get into statement balance in 1 second. Does anyone have questions about secured credit cards? If you have zero credit history, this is a great way to start building credit history, because one, you're almost guaranteed to get approved for it because you're giving them the money up front. But because it is a secured credit card, and as long as you're paying it off every month, within 6 months to a year of having that secured credit card, there's a very good chance that they will convert it to an unsecured credit card in that time period, give you your money back, and then give you a regular credit card. Once you get your foot in the door with one, it becomes much easier to get other better credit cards. Corin mentioned limit to 15 to 18%. Put the essentials on there that you're already going to be paying for anyway: phone bill, Apple Care, occasional coffee. And then Tara said put alerts on your credit cards to keep the utilization under 20%. If you're paying off your bill every week, it becomes much easier to keep it under that 20% threshold. And there are a lot of sign-up benefits. I've got way more credit cards than I should admit to, but I pay them in full every month. I get 2% back on every purchase that I make. Once you get up to good credit, that 2% adds up significantly. I've got an Amazon card and a Target card where I get 5% cash back. That really adds up. Lots of great options out there. Okay. I think this is my last thing on credit. So you can have a credit card and pay $0 in fees. It is a myth that when you get a credit card, you have to pay interest, you have to pay fees on that. As long as you are making your statement balance payment every month, you do not have to pay any fees to have a credit card. Of course, there are some credit cards that will charge an annual fee. Fortunately, those are becoming less and less common. But when you apply for a credit card, it is by law, they have to disclose the annual fee to you. Most of the time, that will be $0. The Discover credit card, the secured credit card, does not have an annual fee, does not charge any fees, which is why I really like them. They don't charge any fees if you're paying your balance on time. If you don't pay your full statement balance, that is when you lose what is called the grace period. So when you first get a credit card, everyone gets a grace period. That means that if you sign up for the credit card on the 1st and you make a charge on that on the 2nd of the month, you don't have to make a payment on that all the way until the 31st. The 31st of the month is when they generate a statement for you. That statement will have a statement balance and your current balance. If you and a due date. So let's say that they give you a 15-day due date. That means that that item that you purchased on the 2nd of, let's say, January, you have not been charged any interest on that all the way up until your due date. Now, if on your due date you pay your full statement balance, you just got 45 days of not paying any interest on that item, and your grace period will refresh for the next month. However, the second that you don't pay your full statement balance, you go, all right, I'm only going to do the minimum payment. The minimum payment says, hey, on your credit report, you paid that. You don't have a late payment, but now interest is kicking in not only on that past 45 days that you haven't paid any interest, it also kicks in for any future payment or any other charges you make on the credit card until you make a full statement balance payment again. So you want to be really careful about that. And again, treat that credit card like your debit card, right? Pay it off. And if you know you're someone who's just going to charge a bunch of stuff to it and not be able to pay it all off at the end of the month, pay it off every single week. A credit card is not a license for free money. And there are staggering amounts of Americans who are carrying credit card debt. Well, why is credit card debt so bad? Credit card debt interest rates are like 25 to 35%, and they can be even higher if you have worse credit. That 25% means that whatever that pack of gum that you just bought for $1 actually is going to cost you $1.25. And if you don't pay that $1.25 off at the end of the month, they're going to compound another 25% on top of that. So now that pack of gum isn't going to cost you $1.50 the next month. It's going to cost you $1.55. And all of a sudden, it starts snowballing and it gets out of control. So you really want to think about, hey, this credit card is not a license for free money. I really need to be able to pay this off by the time the statement is due. So you really, really want to be careful about that. And yes, they do bury that interest rate in the fine print. My advice: avoid credit card debt as much as you can. If you have it, it is something that you should prioritize trying to pay off when you have the income to do so. But also, it is also entirely possible to avoid that interest in the first place. I think a lot of people see their parents and see that their parents are in credit card debt, and then they get afraid of a credit card themselves, right? They think that, oh, I'm going to be paying crazy interest if I ever use a credit card. That is not the case, right? If you are paying off your statement balance in full, it is entirely possible to have a credit card, use it responsibly, and not pay a dime in interest, and get all of those benefits, whether it's the points or the cash back or the bonus offers or anything like that. Your current balance, by the way, is different from your statement balance. Your statement balance is going to include everything that you have charged in that past month. Your current balance is everything that you had charged in that past month, minus any payments that you have made, plus any new charges that you have made since the statement has closed. So if you are in your grace period, if you are paying your statement balance every single month, you do not need to pay your current balance. You only need to pay your statement balance, and you can make multiple payments before your due date to add up to your statement balance. So if you are paid weekly or biweekly, you can say, hey, every time I get my paycheck, I'm going to throw it at my credit card. I'm going to make sure that my statement balance is covered. You do not have to wait until the due date to make your payment. Another pro tip: if you do get a new credit card, as soon as you set up your online account, link it to your bank account, because linking it to your bank account can take 2 or 3 days for them to verify it. So it's a good idea whenever you open a new credit card, consider setting up an auto pay, even if it's for the minimum payment due. Make those full statement balance payments manually, and make sure it is linked to your credit card, because those payments tend to go through within 24 hours once you have it set up. Everyone good there? Okay, I got one more note on interest, and then we will move out of the credit section. This is a video I need to pause.
Okay. But what about when you close a credit card? Because I had a credit card.
Yep.
And then because of things with the pandemic and whatever, like I ended up spending into the limit, whatever, and then ended up having the money to pay it completely off.
Yep.
I paid it off completely, and then found the email where they said they had closed the account.
Okay.
And then went back in, and everything pretty much said I was good. Everything looked fine.
Yep.
And now, like a year later, I'm getting these emails from them about pay your bill, and I can't even see what it is because I can't log in.
Yep. Number one, call them and say, hey, my account was closed. I can't see this bill. Can you tell me how much the amount is? Because one, you want to make sure that your payment went through. And it sounds like if it was zeroed out while you still had access to
It
it.
did.
Okay.
It
Here's
did. I saw that it was zero. And I was like, okay, like I waited to make sure that the payment went through, everything like that. I double checked it.
Yep.
I was very meticulous about it because I'm like, yeah, it's an important adult thing, whatever. So I kept like checking it and everything looked good.
Here's the
And now I
catch.
keep getting emails.
You were accruing interest until you paid that off. Now that you've paid it off, you are now technically in your grace period. But the interest from last month was posted after you paid the full account off. So now you have the interest from the time period between your last statement and when you made the payment. So you think you're in the clear, right? Because the account's zeroed out and you're like, okay, I'm good to go. Well, technically, you have to pay the interest between the last statement and when you made that payment and zeroed everything out. So they put that $20 of interest on your account. Well, because it was closed, you probably didn't get the email notification or whatever it was. And now because of that, you didn't pay that $20. And so they're going to give you the $20 plus more interest on the $20. They can't give you interest on the full payment or the full thing that you paid off, but they can charge interest on the interest that they charged you. Maddening. So when they send you that email, if you still can't sign in, online account got locked out, call them. You may get lucky and it may only be $100. It may only be $50, right? It could be a lower amount because you paid off the card. You were trying to do the right thing. But your story is really good advice for anyone else who has that credit card and they think, oh, I paid it off. I am in the clear. What you should do is sign in the next month and go, do I have another statement, right? I really want to get like 2 or 3 statements of $0 before I close the account. And that is a great thing to say of if you are closing out the account, give them a call and say, I'm closing the account. Do I have any interest payments due? Or will I have any future charges on this account? Because it's not enough just to close it. You do want to go in that next month or two, make sure there is nothing lingering. And one great way to do that is to pull your credit report about 30 to 60 days after you close the account and make sure that on your credit report, it is reported as a $0 balance. Because the sooner you catch that, the sooner the sooner you can call them and say, what amount of money can I send you to make sure that I am fully done with business with you, to make sure that I owe you no additional money? And then go in the next month and make sure that is actually the case, because they want to get that money from you, but it is very easy to think that you are done with them and then have interest on interest accruing. So you do want to be careful with that. But as a millennial and someone who hates phone calls, the best way to deal with it is to call them. They'll take the last 4 of your social. If you don't have your account number, they'll look you up and they'll tell you, hey, this is the amount that if you pay us, we will go away and leave you alone.
That is the reason why I'm so scared to use credit cards, to be honest with you. I personally, for the first time in my life, just got my first line of credit through PayPal for my business. I'm current. I'm definitely current. I literally only spend minimum amounts.
Yep.
It definitely helps your credit. But I had a question for you, Max. So, for people who are new to the whole credit line and all that stuff, just to make sure I'm correct. So if you don't pay off your credit card after 7 years, your credit, it will clear and your credit will go back up about 21 points. If you settle for the amount and don't pay back the whole amount, it's 23 points. And if you pay off a credit card in full, it's 25 points, right?
So there isn't a direct, first of all, there are all kinds of different scoring models. So you hear FICO and we think, oh, FICO score, that is the credit score. That is a credit score. And FICO actually has more models than just the FICO 8. I think it's the FICO 5 that's used when you apply for a mortgage. There's the Vantage score, which is on version 3.0. There is a new credit score that just came out that doesn't include medical debts. I think that's the FICO 9. And then there are different agencies as well, right? So you may have a delinquency. Some collection agency may report to TransUnion, but they don't report to Equifax or Experian. So if they run the FICO score on your TransUnion with the delinquency on it, that score will be much lower than if they run the FICO score 8 on your Experian where the delinquency doesn't show. You don't get to control what agency, what credit reporting agency your bank pulls from, but they do tend to consistently pull from one. If they have TransUnion, they always use TransUnion kind of thing. So there isn't, I say that the credit score algorithm is as protected as Google's search algorithm. There is the chart that I showed back here, which is the general breakdown of what makes up your credit score. But in order to actually analyze your credit report and generate that credit score is, I would say, I was going to say $1 million. It's probably $1 billion industry. And FICO is definitely the largest one. Vantage score is the other. But there isn't a direct, no one can say, hey, if you get rid of this delinquency, your score will go up by exactly 23 points. And it's not something that you should lose sleep over, right? If you have 700 credit score one month and it drops to 796 the next month and it goes up to 705 the month after that, that's okay. A couple points here and there, that's just going to be usually around your amounts owed, right? Naturally, there are some months when you start building up your credit where you go, oh, I spent $1,100 of my $5,000 credit limit. I went a little over 20%. My score dipped a little. I paid it off. Next month, I only put $500 on that credit card, and your score is going to go right back up, right? So minor fluctuations are normal. I believe I've never seen when someone's resolved a delinquency, a credit score bump of less than 25 points. If you have fully paid off that delinquency, as from my experience of helping other people with their credit, I've seen significantly more improvements than 25 points. But it depends, right? If you have a $50 delinquency because you shut down your credit card and you didn't realize there was still interest on it, that may only be a small little bump because they're like, oh, it's 25 bucks, it's 50 bucks, you know, whatever. But if all of a sudden you go, I've known about this delinquency for years, I finally saved up the money, I'm paying off a $3,000 medical bill, and it's the only delinquency on my account, your credit score is going to skyrocket because it's a large payment that you're making all at once, wiping that slate clean. And that's something to not underestimate when you are working with these collection agencies. They would much rather get one payment from you that's a lower amount than have to spread out that payment over 6 months. So that is something that you can use to your advantage. But those numbers, Rain, I don't think they're wrong. I think it just depends on the size of the delinquency, and the credit agency may be able to give you an estimate of, you know, if you pay this off, your score will go up 25 points or however much it is. They may be able to give you that estimate.
In your experience, which credit bureau reports the best credit rating? TransUnion, Equifax, or it really just depends?
Just depends. I make sure to pull all 3 of my credit reports at least once a year and check the data on them for any disputes. There is a 30 to 60 day delay sometimes on if you pay off an account. Don't expect it to be instantaneous on your credit report. Don't pull your credit report the day after paying off the account and then file a dispute and be like, hey, I paid this account off. Why isn't it on my credit report? It can take a full 30 to 60 days to report that out. Usually your credit is reported to the agencies on the day of your statement closing. So if you want to kind of hack the system, the day before your statement closes, you can pay off that account and it will be reported as $0. Or you can get really crafty and pay, if you've got a $50 bill, pay it for, or if you've got a statement that you know is going to be $50, make a $49 payment so it looks like there's only $1 of credit utilization there. That can be a way of hacking the system, but it really just depends.
Yeah, I heard that the credit bureaus is the only thing that hackers can't really touch.
There was a big leak with, was it Experian? No, I think it was Equifax. There was a big data leak where a lot of data got out. They couldn't modify it. They couldn't change your credit. But the system is so flawed that 20% of people have inaccurate information on their credit reports, which is a staggeringly high number. So just even if you're not planning on getting a secured credit card, just pull your credit reports, right? Just read through them. Just make sure there's nothing inaccurate on them. You would be shocked at what kind of information shows up on there sometimes.
Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Amber Lynn said, if you are married and trust your partner with finances, you can put both your names on the accounts. That builds credit faster too. Yes, if you are an authorized user on the other person's account, that can be a great way to build credit. My parents at 18 put me on a credit card and then never gave me the credit card. Well, because they paid their credit, well, obviously with my permission, because they paid their credit card every month, that was a great way for me to build credit. And that was great up until I went to buy my house. And at that point, they had put a like $5,000 yearly insurance bill on a credit card that had like a $6,000 limit. And my credit score went down by 20 points. And I was like, ugh. And for them, it was no big deal because they were going to pay it off immediately. And they did, but it still got reported on their statement balance. And so as I was applying for a house, literally probably the most important time to use your credit, they did that. So I called up the bank and like, take me off as an authorized user. And they did, and my credit score went up immediately. So in general, being an authorized user on someone, a trusted partner that you talk about finances openly with, can be a great way to build your credit for sure. Tara, it used to be that you got one free in a 12-month period. For whatever reason, during the pandemic, they made it that you could pull your credit reports as much as you wanted, and they have not changed that back. So right now you can get it.
That's good to know. I didn't know that they changed
right now
it.
you can get it as much as you want. And then some credit cards or banks will also give you your credit report and score for free. I'm not sure if the Discover secured credit card does it. I hope they do. I know that the regular Discover credit card will give you your FICO score for free every month, and they include it on your statement. So that's a nice little bonus. Plosh, good for you. That is sometimes I call them and say like, call the revolving credit line and say like, hey, what's this for? Because they may say like, oh, this is for Macy's, this is what you bought, and you're like, oh shit, I forgot about that. But if you really don't recognize it, definitely file a dispute, and more importantly, follow up on it, because those disputes get caught in your spam filter all the time. So sign back in, check on the status of that dispute. Sometimes they take up to 30 days, but they should get back to you with some next steps. Okay, did all of this credit. Quick note on interest rates. Let me pause this recording so they don't flag me for copywriting again. So I'm sorry. There is not a single credit score. We touched on that a little bit. 3 different credit reporting agencies. There's the FICO 5, the FICO 8, the Vantage score. So just because you got one credit score from one place does not mean that that is the credit score that the bank or whoever you're applying credit through will be exactly the same. Credit scores and credit bureaus are not the ones who are going to give you the pass or fail. A credit bureau is just to assess how risky you are of a lender. And it is up to the bank to decide whether or not they are going to lend to you or not. Most banks will have some guidelines of saying, hey, if you've got a 720 credit score, we're going to give you the best interest rate. If you go from a 680 to a 720, we're going to add on another 0.25% onto your interest rate. Every bank has different policies, but it's not up to TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian to give you a loan or not give you the loan. It is up to the lending institution. It is just the bureau's responsibility to give as much information as possible to the bank so that they can make a decision on how risky of a lender, risky you are. Your job and your income are not reported anywhere on your credit score or your credit report. So a lot of people think, oh, once I get a better job, my credit score will just go up instantly. That is not the case. If you have more income, chances are you have a better chance of using your credit wisely and your credit score can go up. But I know people who are quite literally making $250,000 right now and have like a 550 credit score because they never learned how to use that wisely. So just because you have a better job or better income does not mean that your credit score goes up. But hopefully it means that you have more income to use more wisely to increase your credit score. Your credit score does not include any demographics. Your credit score does not go down for where you live, your gender, your sexual orientation. None of that is reported on your credit report. If it is not on your credit report, it likely is not going to be used in your credit score. So demographics don't matter, age, gender, where you live, all of that stuff, none of that is factored into your credit score. You do not have a joint credit report. That does not mean that getting married does not have an impact on your credit score, especially if you start opening up joint accounts. When you start adding each other to each other's accounts, that will start impacting your credit report and therefore your score. But getting married does not mean, or being in a relationship does not mean that your credit score or report updates. Paying debt does not erase them. To Tara's point, if you're paying off a delinquency, ask about getting them erased, removed from your credit report. If you have an active credit card, my parents have had like a Bank of America credit card for 30 years, and they can literally see the payment history dating back to the 90s, believe it or not, which is actually a good thing. It benefits their score. So when you pay off a account, that will stay on your report, which can be a good thing. Once you close an account, that account will stay on your credit report for 7 years, and then it will finally drop off. If you have an on-time payment history, that's a great thing. If you don't have an on-time payment history, that's less of a great thing. But paying off regularly usually boosts your score. 7 years is definitely a long time. A delinquency, I don't believe, will stay on your report for for that period of time. But your payment history will. And the exception to that is if the account is still open, they will keep more than 7 years. No idea why 7 years is not 5 or 10. There are some laws around delinquencies of them being required to remove the delinquencies in a shorter time period, but I've no idea why it's 7. And it sounds like a bad thing of 7 years, but if you have 7 years of on-time payment history, that can be great for your credit score. Never, ever, ever pay someone to fix your credit. You cannot pay someone $50 and get a $25 boost on your credit report. Just does not work like that. You've got to invest the time into improving that on your own. There are, however, state licensed fiduciaries. A fiduciary is someone who, when they give you financial advice, it has to be in your best interest. It cannot be in their best interests. There are state accredited agencies that will help you improve your credit score, and they will do the same exact thing that I will do, except 10 times better. They will pull your credit report with you. They will go through everything. They will generate a budget with you, and then they will come up with a game plan for getting those delinquencies resolved. So never, ever, ever pay someone. Those state agencies, they're all free. So never pay someone to improve your credit. It just doesn't work like that. That doesn't mean that people can't advise you and help you get better with your credit. Just don't pay for your credit to be improved. Consolidation questions. That is a really good one. Let me hit my last point here. Your credit score does not value you as a person. It is very easy to say, I've got a low credit score, I must be a terrible person. That is not the case. It just means that you haven't either built your credit or had the financial freedom to work on building your credit, right? So I don't want you to think that because you've got a bad credit score, you're a bad person. You definitely can improve on your credit score, but that does not tie you to your value to society or anything like that. There are consolidation companies, Shannon, where you can go to them. I'm not the nice thing about the consolidation companies is they will negotiate for you, but they will often take a fee on top of that. So they aren't necessarily a bad thing. A consolidation company will say, hey, you owe money to these 3 credit cards. We're going to go negotiate on your behalf. Then we will take on that debt, and then you will pay us, and we will pay off your credit card companies for you. So just take it with a grain of salt. Know that you can often do what the consolidation companies are doing directly with whoever you owe the debt to, whether that be a collection agency or the original source of the loan. Oftentimes you can negotiate with them directly. But if you are working with a consolidation company and they've been upfront and transparent about what they've negotiated to and what fees you are paying them directly, I don't have anything against those consolidation companies. But again, just like any bank, make sure you're getting good vibes. Make sure that you feel like you're not getting nickeled and dimed on fees. Make sure that you feel comfortable with working with them. That's probably the most important thing for finances. Taylor, I'm not familiar with a Skinner box.
It's mostly just like a concept where there's arbitrary rewards and punishments that are used typically to test behavior in animals and stuff like that. Got it.
Now I'm caught up. My AP Psych teacher would be horrified that I didn't remember that. So I will say that you can definitely game the system, right? Credit can be very infuriating. I used necessary evil before, and I don't know that I would stand by that term. It is a capitalistic. Here's how I'll say it. We live in a capitalistic society, right? And credit is something that has incredible value in that we can get access to money that we don't have. The problem with that is that there are punishments for people using their credit when they aren't taught how to use their credit wisely, right? And I think that that's the biggest issue with the credit system in the US. And on the flip side of that, China actually has no credit system, right? Second largest economy in the world. There is no notion of a credit report in China, and that is a major issue right now that is actually holding them back economically, and something that the Chinese government is rapidly trying to solve. So I do think that there needs to be some kind of governance, some kind of system. I honestly wish that it was a public system. I wish that it was run by the federal government and not necessarily by 3 private credit reporting agencies that are out to just make money. I do think that that is a major flaw of the system, but I do think that there needs to be some way of evaluating an individual before they get access to credit. And some people live their whole lives never having a credit card, never getting a mortgage, but that number is very small because credit does have value. And so that's why I think it's worth investing in improving your credit, even if it's just that one secured credit card, even if it's the one credit card that you pay off every month. At least you exist in the system. So God forbid, if you ever do need to use that credit, you have access to it. But I do think that there are flaws in the system, but not necessarily that it is all a construct, because credit has value in capitalism. Did I go too deep there? Okay. I'm past our break time. Go on break, be back at 7:35 because I've got a lot more content to cover. And I'm now realizing that I should have done this over 2 days and maybe sprinkled this in throughout the course of the program, but you guys are getting it first. Go on break, back at 7:35. We will run through everything as quickly as possible and also give you time to chime in. I'm recording. Zoom these slides. So I really like this quote by P.T. Barnum. Money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant, right? When you've got it, it does great things for you. But if you let it get control of you, it will become your master, right? So just something to think about. I'm going to go through this hopefully quicker than the credit section. We will be on track for an 8:30 class time ending, but if anyone has comments, feel free to keep on coming off mute, keep on chiming in the chat. Really have appreciated everyone's engagement, and this hopefully is triggering action items for you guys, and also some things to think about. So finances, where to start? One, you want to create a spreadsheet of your financial snapshot. You may have in your brain everywhere where you've got money, all of your different accounts, but until you get it out of your head, it doesn't really count, right? Getting it out into a spreadsheet, into a Google Doc, just somewhere where you can take advantage of seeing one snapshot of your finances can be really empowering. You want to include any debt on that, loans, credit card, the balance of them, the monthly payment amount, payoff date, or if you're not paying on them actively, but you know it's something that you gotta deal with, include that on the spreadsheet, and then also include any savings account, checking account, retirement accounts, anywhere that you've got money. You want to get that all into one snapshot, and then consider making a budget. Mint is a very popular one. Mint is owned by Intuit, who owns QuickBooks and TurboTax. And then YNAB, you need a budget, is a really popular one. If you're not a spreadsheet person, YNAB is kind of like drink the Kool-Aid. And if you drink the Kool-Aid, they've got a different way about thinking about how you go about making a budget. That apparently makes it easier to continue using the app and staying on budget. So Mint is free. YNAB is like $40 a year. Anyone who I've talked to who has used it, who has said that the free trial sold them on it, and they gladly pay the $40 a year for it. But there is a free trial to get started, see if you like that, and kind of go from there. A budget and a financial picture are not the same. It's very saying, hey, this is how I plan on spending my money, and this is where I'm spending my money. That's a budget. The financial picture is what I feel like a lot of places won't tell you to do, which is like, hey, I want to be able to see all of my accounts in one place. Maybe you only update it every 6 months, maybe you only update it every year, but just some notion of, hey, if I croak, could someone know where my money is at, right? And do I have an idea of maybe you're not saving for a retirement account yet, but over time, you kind of want to get just that one financial picture, right? That snapshot of this is everywhere where my money is. So start thinking about that as if that is something that could benefit you, because over time, money gets spread out, you get different accounts, all of that kind of stuff. So just something to consider. Questions? Okey-doke. When you do start making money, one, not all debt can be paid off from your current income level, right? So don't lose sleep over things that you can't control. Realize that if you've got some debt in your past, that it is okay to stay in your past, and not worry about paying that off until your income level increases. So don't kill yourself over paying all of that debt off. Know that you can do that over time. Adjust your financial picture, right? You want to keep in mind that you're making more money, so that you want to reflect the budget, because what's very easy is to say, well, I've been living on this lower budget for a while. Now that I'm making more money, I don't need to follow my budget anymore. That is definitely not the case. You definitely want to adjust your budget, make sure that you understand, now that I have the extra money, where do I want to allocate it? How do I want to plan out spending of that before I actually go out and do it? This is a suggestion from Rain. Watch out for consumerism, right? It's very easy to say, oh, I've got the money. I'm going to go to Target every weekend and pick up whatever I need. I've got Amazon. I can get, whatever I need in overnight shipping, and I can afford it now. Well, at a certain point, you look back and you go, well, yeah, even though I could afford it all, do I really need all of this stuff? And then you go to move and you really hate consumerism because you've got a ton of stuff, it's clutter, and you need to get rid of all of it. So one thing to watch out there, capitalism and consumerism, unfortunately go hand in hand, and our society kind of pushes you to spend your money. There is a very empowering feeling when you realize that you don't need to fill your income with objects, and you can actually save up, work towards retirement, all of that good stuff. Any questions on that? Okay. Taxes. You must absolutely file your taxes every year. The order in which I would like to owe money is like credit cards, the mob, and the IRS. And the IRS is the worst of the worst. You do not want to owe money to the IRS, or to the state government either. File your taxes every year. You can file, if you have not filed in past years, you can go 2 to 3 years back and file those taxes. You can go back to the 2020 tax year as of today. And that's really important, especially in the past couple of years, because that may include some stimulus payments that you didn't get. And so when you go to file your taxes, it will ask you, hey, did you get this stimulus payment? And if you go check your bank account and go, no, I never got that, or sign into the IRS website, and the IRS website will tell you what stimulus payments have been issued, you can actually get that stimulus payment as part of your tax refund. So that is a major incentive. Definitely a very important thing, an adult thing to do, file your taxes. Chances are, if the IRS is not coming after you, that means you probably either don't owe a lot, or they owe you a refund, and that is free money that you are sitting out on the table if they owe you a refund that you can get. So filing your taxes, I use TurboTax every year. I'm a huge fan of that. The IRS does have a free e-file program if you're making under a certain income threshold. I would pay 4 times as much as I do for TurboTax, because I also unofficially don't do my friends' taxes, but let's be honest, I help them do their taxes. So definitely make sure you're filing. You can get your stimulus payments, and then part of organization. Every year, when you get your W-2s, your 1099s, any other tax forms in the mail, they start trickling in like beginning of February or whatever. make sure you scan them in and save them as a PDF, and also save your taxes as a PDF. Because over time, the software that you did your taxes in, you may not be able to install it anymore. It may not be supported anymore, but you can always open a PDF. So when you are done your taxes, even if you e-file them, have a copy of them as a PDF, and then scan in your W-2s and your 1099s. Back to the mortgage talk, when you apply for a mortgage, they require your past 2 years of tax returns and information from your W-2s. And then if you're working as a contractor, also your 1099s. So you really want to focus on having that all organized, having that scanned in, being able to pull that up really easily is a total game changer. Anyone have tax questions? I'm not an accountant, by the way, and none of this is legal advice. I probably should have started with that.
I just want to kind of add to that. For anyone who's like receiving like reimbursements through your employer or bonuses from your employer, it's always good to ask them if you're going to receive a 1099, because at the end of the day, Uncle Sam wants his money, no matter how you get it, and everything is taxed. So make sure of that, because you can be penalized. A lot of people nowadays, they are trying to start businesses. A lot of people like instant gratification and don't understand the work that it takes to put into a business. But if you're deciding on, starting a DBA or LLC, you do
hold that thought. I've got that coming up in another section. Withholding and LLCs versus DBAs versus S Corps. So I definitely want you to chime in, but hold that thought for a second. Any other questions on this? Okay. Organization, i.e. how to feel like an adult. All of this is great if you're adulting, but none of it really matters unless you can feel like you're making progress, right? So organization, I think, is the trick to making other people feel like you've got your life put together. Just being able to find files and documents, and I think is really, really important. So digital organization. My number one tip, if you take nothing from tonight, use a password manager. The one built into Safari and Mac and Chrome have gotten better. They are still probably a decade behind 1Password. Dashlane is another one. And then I forget what LastPass is another popular one. I use 1Password. I live and die by 1Password. I have over 1,000 passwords now in my 1Password. Learning how to use a password manager and saving everything in there is a game changer. And then you learn about security and storing a random password for every service that you use. Super, super important. Cannot recommend 1Password enough. I believe they have a student rate as well. So if you want to try that route, you can say that you're a bootcamp student and see if you can get a discount on it. They do have a free tier, and then if you want to sync it with other devices, I think you have to pay more for it. It is hands down, if I could only pick one tool to install on my Mac, I would pick 1Password. It is an absolute game changer when you don't have to reset passwords all the time. Cannot recommend it enough. For your paper files that you want to organize digitally, I do everything in Google Drive. iCloud Drive is a great option. If you're a Microsoft person, you can use OneDrive. Doesn't really matter which one you use. What I have is all my digital documents, all of that stuff is in different folders, but I have one folder called Docs. Inside my Docs folder, I've got every year, and then inside those years, I've got PDFs, and those PDFs are either paperwork that I filed online, some form that I filled out and I wanted to save the confirmation. That could be a receipt of like a big appliance that you just bought that you want to have some organization for in case you ever need to have a warranty on it. That could be some mail that you got, a tax assessment, right? To use your quotas information. I scan in my tax assessment every year. I scan in my tax paid bill, and then I recycle or I shred that, and it is out of my life, and I've got a digital copy of it. This is a very basic form of organization, but I will tell you, it has saved my ass more times than I can count. Very, very empowering to push your workflow digital, take all of that paper that's lying around and scan it in, PDF it, or you can even use scan apps on your phone. I use one called Genius Scan, which I know has a free tier, and there's even if you just take a picture of it and upload that JPEG or the PNG or whatever file format it is into a file system that's organized, total game changer, something to consider. Goes for paper mail. Never have multiple copies of the same file or project. That goes for your code. Lean into Git as you graduate through the program. Git is a very empowering thing and something that you are guaranteed to use in the workforce if you're going into a development job. Never have multiple copies. You will get lost. You will think you're organized. You're not organized. You will come back to it a year later and not realize what the multiple copies are. Just a bad idea in general. Try to avoid that. Have a digital backup, whether that's on the cloud, iCloud, Google Drive. Backblaze is a service that I pay for that backs up my entire computer to the cloud. And then Time Machine is something that is built into the computer. Time Machine is considered a little more old school, but it backs up your entire hard drive. You do need an external hard drive to back it up to, whether that is a spinning disk, traditional hard disk hard drive, or a solid state. Either of those are great options. Please don't use a flash drive. Flash drives are meant for temporarily moving files between computers. They are not meant for storage, and they have very high failure rates, even when they're sitting off in a closet and you're not using them. So a flash drive, very easy to lose data on. Try not to use that for your backups, but cloud, whether it's Backblaze and you're backing up the whole computer. Is it Blackbait? No, it's Backblaze. Or iCloud Drive or Google Drive or OneDrive with Microsoft. Any of those, just have a backup somewhere. Any questions on that? Okay. Important documents. Invest in a fireproof safe. It does not have to be a super expensive safe. I paid $100 for mine. I keep it in my office closet. Please don't rob my house now that I've told you where my safe is. There's no valuables in there other than these documents. Keep anything, don't store anything non-important in it. It is very easy to junk up your safe, to shove things in there. I would avoid that if you can. I've got one of the like expandable file organizers that you used in like middle school. That's how I keep everything organized in there. Things that you should be storing, not just for you, but your significant others or your kids. Passports, birth certificate, social security card, car title if you own your car. Just try not to junk it up. Don't use that as a place to shove paperwork that you're going to come back to and deal with later. If you do not have you or your child's birth certificate or social security card, it is worth going through that process and replacing it. You will make their lives 10 times easier when they go to get their first driver's license. It is a pain, but not a huge pain to get a replacement birth certificate or social security card. It is a ginormous pain when you need to get one of them quickly. So man up. Man up's a terrible phrase. What's the non-sexist version of that? Gain up your courage and just bite the bullet if you don't have those documents. If your parents are around, of course, you can ask them, see if they have that for you. If they do, get it from them, make sure you have that on file. But that is really, really important to have that. Passport obviously is not important if you're not traveling internationally, but having you and your children's birth certificate, social security card, really, really important. Amberlynn added a great note in. Passports are taking up to a year to get now, which it used to be like 2 to 3 months. You can pay for an expedited one, but that is a really great note. If you are planning on traveling internationally, when you book your flight, if you don't have your passport, go apply for a passport. And passport renewals are moving online, if not this year, the beginning of next. So yay, progress. But that's a really great note to throw out there. For ID cards, obviously, this is your driver's license. If you have a driver's license, check your New York State one. If it does not have a US flag on it or a star on it, it is not a real ID. Real IDs are going to be required in early 2025, I believe, to fly. And it will be a complete shit show at the airport for anyone who does not have a real ID and tries to board. They've been trying to do this for like 10 years now, and then a little thing called a pandemic happened and they pushed it back, and then New Jersey took their sweet time offering those. So next time you renew your license, consider getting a real ID. You do have to go to the DMV. You have to show 2 proofs of address, your birth certificate and your social security card. Then you get a real ID and you can use that to fly. If you don't get that real ID in a year and a half, you won't be able to fly using just your driver's license. And then the other thing is consider getting a New York ID for your kids. They are pretty cheap, like $5-10. And that can be very helpful if they ever need ID for anything. You've got a like a legal state ID that you can use with them. Really great if you're ever flying with them. Something to consider next time you're at the DMV. Look into getting your kids that. If your kids already have passports, they probably don't need a New York State ID, but just something to consider. If you didn't notice, I'm a huge fan of Real ID. There are actually legitimate security improvements that they've made to it that the federal databases can tie in and get accurate information. So not saying you need to run to the DMV tomorrow and get a Real ID, but if your license is due for renewal, it's worth considering going into the DMV to renew and get that Real ID or an enhanced license, which is Real ID compliant. The enhanced licenses will also let you cross the border in Canada without needing your passport, which is kind of cool. Any questions there? In case you were wondering, yes, I am this much fun when I hang out with my friends and tell them that they need to do all of this stuff as well. For a cheery topic, get ready to die. We're all dying, so we might as well admit it. I have written an entire blog post on this. These are all of the documents that you should consider. I was in a coma when I was a teenager that made me really wake up to how hard it would be if I died tomorrow, how hard it would be for my family or my executor to go through and kind of clean up everything that the life that I have lived. So I have linked to this blog post. I will drop a link in the Zoom. No, I won't. That is linked in the PDF that I shared in Slack. If you want to check out that blog post, you totally can. It goes over the breakdown of all of these documents. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them, but this is everything that would make your life easier, to have someone else care for you if you were going through anything medical, and then also having things set up for if you face an untimely demise. These are everything that you should consider legally to make sure your bases are covered, make sure life is easier for your kids or whoever your estate is passing on to. Again, not any legal advice. This is just my experience, but lots of documents to consider. LegalZoom has some of them that you can get. You can find templates online. Things like HIPAA authorization. You can just Google New York State HIPAA authorization, and it's a one-page form to fill out. Make sure those documents are shared with whoever would be taking care of you. It doesn't do you much good to do all of the work filling out the paperwork if they don't know that the paperwork exists or don't have a copy of it. So everything except your power of attorney, you can definitely share with whoever will be executing those documents and going on from there. Glad the odd even app is helpful, right? Day-to-day living. Live your life out of a calendar and a to-do list. They are not the same. Calendars are meant for scheduling time. To-do lists are everything that you need to get done when you have gaps on your calendar. I cannot say this the most. This is the thing that makes me probably feel the most adult. This is making sure that I'm valuing my time and staying true to commitments, both to my colleagues and to doctors and all of that stuff. Don't use an excuse of like, oh, I don't have a lot going on, or I don't have a lot of appointments. I'm telling you, you will revolutionize how you feel about yourself and gain confidence if you live your life out of a calendar and a to-do list. Respect. When you respect your time, you'll start to respect others, and in turn, that builds their respect for you. Back in the day, respect was assumed, right? We've all probably heard respect your elders. I think that that is becoming less the case. I think that respect is something that you need to earn, and it's a two-way street, right? And so you can't respect others if you don't respect yourself. When you start respecting yourself, you can respect others, and then those others can start to respect you. So respect, I do think, is an important concept. I think it is changing in our generation compared to our parents' generation, but just something to ponder and think about. Okay, when life starts coming at you too fast, use your notes. I always have a notebook within arm's reach of me, normally 2 of them. A whiteboard is instrumental. I cannot tell you the number of students who went out and bought a $30 whiteboard at Target and have organized their entire life pre and post boot camp on a whiteboard. That's a great option. I'm not throwing any shade at notebooks. I use notebooks. It is old school, but it works. It is a great place to dump thoughts. Sticky notes is a great system. Definitely lean into that. You may look like a serial killer with Post-it notes all over one of your walls, but if that is the way that you can get things out of your brain and organized, lean into using sticky notes. Go get a multi-pack of like 4 different sticky note colors and start throwing things on the wall. In order to organize them, you can use your Kanban board, which is your to-do, doing, done. You don't necessarily, you can add columns to that. You can do that in your notebook. You don't have to use Trello. Trello is a game changer for a lot of people when they lean into it. It is a great tool to use. Or that can go for really any project management tool. Asana is a popular one. Jira is one that's used for software projects that work all the time. Lots of different options out there. It does not matter which one you use, as long as you use it consistently and enjoy using it. That's probably the most important thing in a project management tool. Wallboard calendar, another great idea, Amberlynn. When you need to manage 19 people's calendars, that can definitely become taxing. I say that a unicorn threw up a rainbow onto my calendar because I've got color coding quite literally out the wazoo on my calendar. So definitely lean into your organization. And then finally, identify action items out of every meeting. There's a book I'm going to recommend called The 25-Minute Meeting coming up. But no one should have to suffer through an hour meeting and then not get anything out of it, right? So I always recommend spending the last 5 minutes of a meeting identifying who's going to do what tasks at the end of it. And then I also recommend going through your notes and just highlighting out what needs to get done. What did I learn from this meeting? What questions do I have to answer before we meet on this next? You will find that there are always tasks thrown at you. Very important to have notes and take advantage of them. Schneider also gave a great talk on this when we had all the alumni come in on how to utilize notes. So recommend checking out that video if you were absent for that class. Questions?
I'm kind of stuck like pecan on Kanban, or is it Kanban?
I've heard
Or is
Kanban
it
and
Kanban?
Kanban.
Right.
So I'm not going to tell you which one is right because I don't know myself.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Just stuck on the pronunciation or using one?
Well, no, I was reading Palash's comment and I'm like saying to myself, like pecan.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stuck like that. I guess it really doesn't matter as long as I know how to use it, right?
I think it's a Japanese word, and the Japanese would pronounce it kanban, but the English go kanban. So take your pick. Yeah, it doesn't matter what project management system you're using, as long as one, it's working for you, and two, you're using one, that's all that really matters. Okay. Lots of notes in the Slack thread about anxiety and stress. Anxiety and stress are not the same thing. I found this graphic that I really appreciated. Stress is short term. Stress is a reaction to external stimuli, right? They call it a threat here. It could be your boss threatening that you need to get something done. You may say that you're always stressed. That's not really the case. You may have high cortisol levels, but stress is really reaction to a task that's been given to you. Anxiety, on the other hand, is lingering, right? You can have anxiety over a long period of time. Anxiety is a medically diagnosable condition. To have chronic anxiety. A lot of these adjectives on this Venn diagram just really resonated with me, of being able to identify stress and anxiety, and also realizing that anxiety can cause stress, right? That is, and you being stressed out can lead to anxiety, and now all of a sudden you've got a snowball effect going on. So a couple things, they're not the same. I've personally found, and granted, we're all on the spectrum, but I'm probably a little bit more on that autism spectrum than most. Just a touch, never been diagnosed, but you start to recognize some patterns. But anyway, in my personal opinion, the best way of reducing stress is reducing both stress and anxiety is identifying the cause and engineering your way out of it. So what do I mean by that? This type of engineering is called project management. I know I never shut up about project management, but engineering at the end of the day is just breaking down tasks, right? So if you treat your life as a project, oh, that's going to bother me that opening quote and the closing quote don't line up. Sorry, OCD. The best way of dealing with anxiety and stress is identifying what is causing it, breaking it down, because oftentimes your stress is coming from a task that is so big that you can't figure out how to get started on it. And because you don't know how to get started on it, it starts causing anxiety over the long term, because you just keep on having this one thing in front of you or a bunch of things in front of you, and you don't know where to get started. The hardest part of engineering is always getting started. Plan it out. Write down those big tasks, right? Whether it's on the whiteboard, whether it's in a Trello card, whether it's on a Post-it note, whether it's in your notebook, wherever it is, write down the things you need to get done. Before you do any of them, prioritize them. Prioritization is a Kanban hallmark. It is a pillar. It is a foundation. It is very important. You don't want to think about all 19 things that you need to get done. You need to prioritize those 19 things so you can start focusing on the most important one. Once you do that, you can engineer out those tasks into subtasks that are accomplishable, and then you can start working on them. Whenever I get stressed, whenever I am anxious due to the amount of things I need to do, I take a step back. I tell everyone to fuck right off, and I spend an hour myself organizing myself, figuring out what I'm doing. I share that game plan with my team or with whoever's depending on me. You can rubber duck it if you don't have anyone that really cares. And that is a great way to get started. That is often a way as a leader that when I show that I can plan through my stress, I can show what my game plan is. It often helps other members on my team for taking the same approach and reducing stress levels across the board. So don't let stress turn into anxiety. Treat your life as a project manage your way through it. And often that is a good way, at least in my opinion, of working your way through it. Palash mentioned mindfulness. If you've got an Apple Watch, they've got the Breathe app, which is a great option. I know a lot of people with anxiety benefit from the Calm app of doing a meditation a day. It only takes a couple minutes. One thing you can try is the Pomodoro method for actually working through things. That is, you spend 25 minutes working on a task and then 5 minutes taking a break and either working on something that doesn't require intense brain activity or actually getting up and walking away, and then doing another 25-minute sprint. Even though it sounds very anal of working in those time periods, that repetition actually tricks your brain into being more productive. And then after 5 of those sprints, you take a full 25-minute break before you do another cycle of 5 of those 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. So Pomodoro is something you can check out if you're someone who struggles focusing and you've got a block of time that you can really dive in. Pomodoro can be a really great technique to lean into. Okay, moving on. Speaking of project managing your life, consider organizing your life into weekly or bi-weekly sprints. A sprint is just saying, here are the tasks that I am planning on getting done. Then you go for a week or 2 weeks. And at the end of those 2 weeks, before you just keep on going and keep on adding more tasks to the list, you take the time to do a retrospective. That retrospective is saying, what did I get done? What went well in this past week or 2 weeks? What do I need to adjust? And most importantly, what should I pat myself on the back for? What should I give myself credit for accomplishing this week? One of the most important concepts of sprint planning is only committing to the work that you can get done in that sprint period, in that week or 2 weeks. And then when those new tasks pop up and you have to add something to your list, when something unexpected happens, looking at your list and saying, before I can add that task on, that new thing that I absolutely have to get done, what on my list am I going to say I now cannot get done, and I'm going to throw in my backlog, I'm going to throw in my back burner, I'll get to this eventually, because this new thing showed up. So retrospectives, very important. Give yourself credit. There is also something called a post-mortem. That is when shit really hits the fan, right? When things go wrong in your life, whether it is something that you're working on that took way more time, whether it's something in a relationship, whether it's some drama at work, once you get through that, think about going back and analyzing that, thinking about how you could prevent that in the future, think about how you can optimize around that, think about what you should be doing differently. That is all what a post-mortem is. A post-mortem is normally done at a big company when there's a giant outage. So if Zoom just stops working and no one can use Zoom, the whole company is in a tizzy, they get it fixed. But once they get it fixed, it's not enough to go, all right, we're back up to normal, let's move on. It's important to analyze why that happened to prevent it from happening in the future. And so retrospective and postmortems are not the same thing, but living your life and looking back at what you've done and what's happened and committing to what you're going to get done without overcommitting is all part of the balancing act of making sure and reducing that anxiety. Not just about what you do, but what you've accomplished. I covered that. Engineering, breaking things into smaller pieces. Treat your to-do list items the same way. Make sure that when you look at that to-do list item, it is not causing anxiety. If it is, chances are you haven't broken it down enough to be able to go through and accomplish it. Time management becomes a lot easier when you start identifying what needs to get done. If you just are anxious and don't know everything that you need to get done, there is no way to properly manage your time. But as soon as you identify all the shit that needs to get done, all of a sudden it becomes much easier to designate time to it. Questions on that? Hopefully there are some helpful tips in there. Cool. Okay, things I wish I was taught sooner. I've got one more section after this. These are all kind of common sense thing. Oh no, not the health insurance. The rest of this is all kind of common sense things, so we'll be able to go through it quickly. Two places that you can get insurance in the US. You can get it at the state exchange, that is called Obamacare, colloquially, cannot say that word. That is if your employer does not offer you health insurance and you want to get it. New York State actually has one of the better state exchanges for finding health insurance. And then the obvious place that you can get it is your employer, right? Other options are out there like Cobra, which is how you can stay on your employer's insurance. There are lots of different options out there. There are health insurance plan navigators that are available totally free. I highly recommend talking to one of them if you're ever in a position for shopping for insurance and just getting overwhelmed with everything out there. But it basically breaks down into, not for employer insurances, but for the state exchanges. There are 4 levels: bronze, silver, gold, and I missed a comma for platinum. What that means is that if you are on a bronze level plan, you will pay the lowest amount monthly. But when you do need to use your insurance, it's supposed to roughly work out that your insurance company pays 60% of those healthcare costs, you pay 40% of it. For preventative care, you're not supposed to pay anything out of pocket. And then as you go up on the metal levels, when you get all the way up to platinum, you'll be spending hundreds more a month than you would be on the bronze plan. But your insurance company is going to pay for 90% of it. You're going to pay for 10% of it. So important to factor in your health conditions, how often you go to the doctor, what you're dealing with, and try and figure out what plan is best for you, what you can afford. One piece of advice: when you get a bill from your doctor, if it doesn't seem right, don't pay it. I cannot tell you the number of times that my doctor has screwed up, not my primary doctor, but a doctor that I have had has screwed up billing my insurance, or they didn't scan the card into the system right, or that they billed the insurance and the insurance didn't, they didn't bill the insurance properly. And so when I get a bill from my doctor, if it's something that the bill makes sense to me and I'm like, oh, this is just my copay, I need to pay that at every session. I didn't pay it while I was there. Yes, I've been double charged for copays. Then pay the bill. I'm not saying don't pay your doctor's bills, but I'm saying read your bill, make sure you understand it. And if something is off, if something looks like insurance should have paid for something and didn't, call your doctor's office or call your insurance company and say, hey, I think you were supposed to pay for this. Sometimes it's a back and forth and you got to make multiple phone calls. But just because you get a bill does not mean that you need to pay it. Don't wait on that. Don't sit on that. Deal with it, but just something to consider. Any questions on health insurance? If you're ever getting your own insurance through the state exchange, definitely consider reaching out to one of the professionals there. They are, I believe they're called navigators, but they are paid through federal and state funding to help you find the best insurance fit for you while paying the least amount possible. HSA and FSA are 2 tax advantaged savings accounts. HSA is a health savings account that basically allows you to put money in, and then you are allowed to spend that on a wide range of categories, a lot of stuff that you can get at the pharmacy. That is definitely something to take advantage of if your plan allows it. And FSAs are kind of the same thing. They've got same general idea, different rollover rules and stuff like that. But yes, take advantage of an HSA if your employer offers it. Okay, quick video on a breakdown of insurance costs, because I wish I knew all of this when I got started shopping for insurance. Retirement accounts, 401k versus IRA. 401k is offered by your by your employer. IRAs are offered, you can get an IRA from almost any bank or stock brokerage account, TD Ameritrade, SoFi, Schwab. I'm blanking on a lot of them. You can get those accounts. IRAs have very low fees. 401ks have higher limits on them. The basic breakdown that you want to know, 401k is given to you by your employer. It's just an account. You still have to put money into it. And then the IRA is literally an individual retirement account. I feel like once I learned what the acronyms stand for, it just made so much more sense. Employer match is coming to that, Allie. Employer match is basically what your employer trying to help you out building a retirement nest egg. It is saying that, hey, if you put in 3% of your salary, we will put in and match that 3% as well. That is free money. Whenever you have the chance, if you can financially swing it, you should at least be putting into your 401k whatever your employer will match on it. Super, super important, because if you put in $3,000, they will put in another $3,000. That is a free $3,000. That is benefits that your employer is willing to pay. If you're putting into your retirement, they will also match. If that is part of your benefits package, it isn't for everyone. For 401ks and for IRAs, traditional means that that money goes in pre-tax. What does that mean? It means that when you file your taxes at the end of the year, you're going to get a refund for part of the money that you put into your IRA. The downside to traditional IRA accounts is that when you do withdraw that money after you turn 55, after you retire, when you pull that money out, you need to pay taxes on it then. You also need to pay any taxes on the growth that has happened between the time you put the money in and the time that you are taking the money out. That has made sense historically, because when you retire, you're making a lot less money than when you were working, and so your tax bracket rate is supposed to drop. However, if you are younger, if you're saying, well, I've got 20 or 30 years for my retirement to grow, the other option is opening a Roth account. The Roth account, you don't get a refund on your tax return when you put your money into that. You're putting that money in post-tax. That means that all of the time that that money is growing, you don't have to pay any taxes on that growing amount. And when you withdraw that money, you also don't have to pay any taxes. So the downside to a Roth is that you are paying taxes at a higher tax rate if you are making more money now than when you retire. The plus side to that is that all of that growth will be tax-free, and you don't have to pay any taxes on it when you withdraw it. Which one is better? There's no cut and dry answer for that. A financial advisor will have an opinion. Some people hedge their bets and they put some money in one and some in the other. I personally think that I'm going to be making a lot more money over my career than what I'm making now. And I think with all of automation coming down the pipeline and tax rates being the lowest that they have ever been historically, in at least in the past century or so, I think that Roth is personally the way to go. You can think about it now as, if you guys aren't making a ton of money right now, you can put that money in at a lower tax rate at your Roth level, and then when you do start making more money down the line, you could consider switching that to traditional. But like I said, there's no one right answer for everyone. Pre-tax versus post-tax is the difference between Roth, which is post-tax. You've already paid your money on that. So all the growth you don't have to pay taxes on, compared to traditional, which is I'm putting it in pre-tax. I'm getting a refund for putting that money in. But when I pull that money out at retirement, I will owe taxes on it. So something to consider. Like I said, no right answer. Do your research on that. Figure out what kind of account you want. I am a huge fan of Roth accounts, but there are pros to traditional accounts as well. There is no one right answer there. And some of it is placing a bet, because you don't really know how much money you're going to make at retirement. You don't really know how much your salary is going to be over the next 30 years and all of that stuff. So it can also fluctuate. Social Security will not be enough. I know a ton of people, unfortunately, think that they can retire and Social Security will take care of them. Please do not rest on this laurel. Yes, you are paying into it. if you've got 30 years to go, there is a chance that Social Security just won't even be there. Or if you look at the amount that Social Security benefits pay out, chances are it will not be enough to live off of. So when you start making money, please consider investing in a retirement account. The only other thing that I will say is putting the money in an IRA, whether it's Roth or traditional, or even a 401k, is not enough. Once the money gets into the account, you need to invest it. That money is just sitting in a bank account, not making any interest. So after you transfer your funds into that account, whether your employer is doing that for you out of your paycheck, whether you're doing it as an IRA, make sure that you are investing that money. Index funds are a great option. Vanguard has a ton of great mutual funds. If you have no idea where to get started, but you really want to start talking about retirement, I am happy to get you started. But finding a fiduciary financial advisor when you start making money is a really great way to make you start feeling more confident about your retirement, knowing that you are doing the right things throughout your career so that when you do retire, you will have some growth and things to live off of. Okay, internet speeds. I can go through this one really quickly. 3 types of internet that's widely used in this country: DSL, cable, and fiber. On DSL, you'll be lucky to get 10 megabit download speeds. Cable is going to up you into that 100 megabit range, give or take, depending on how much you're paying for. And then fiber is 1,000, right? It seems like fiber is the clear choice. Fiber is not available everywhere. Unfortunately, it is not available in Syracuse city limits a ton. If you do have access to Fios, I cannot recommend it enough. The reason for that is because upload speeds matter. So if you go on Spectrum's website or on some DSL provider's website, all they're going to do is they're going to advertise their download speeds. And even with Spectrum, you can get 1,000 megabit download speed depending on what neighborhood you're in. And you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then you get Spectrum and you're like, why does my internet suck so much when I'm getting 1,000 download speeds and I would never even need to use up to 1,000? That's because they don't advertise their upload speeds. On Comcast, which is cable based, you can get 1,000 megabit download speed, but you only get 35 megabit upload speed. When you start going down the tiers, you start going down to the 400 and the 100 level megabit plans, your upload speeds are going down to 10, down to 5, sometimes even down to 1 megabit upload. And nowhere on their website will they advertise their upload speed. You actually have to call them and say, stop giving me the sales bullshit. I'm a software developer. I know how the internet works. What is my upload speed going to be? So what I recommend for anyone working remotely, learning remotely, using their computer on the regular, who has kids streaming, who's streaming on their own, whatever it is, you want 25 megabit download speed and 5 megabit upload speed per active device. That multiplies, obviously, if you've got 4 kids who are all on the internet at the same time and you're trying to work. Those are ideal speeds. You can cut them down a little bit. 5 megabit download and 1 megabit upload is the absolute minimum threshold that I would recommend. But if you are shopping for internet speeds and are trying to come up with a rough idea of how much internet speed you need, more is not always better. And if you have the option for fiber, whether that's Fios or Windstream in this area, I highly recommend going for it. But hopefully this is a good breakdown of internet speed, because the salespeople will sell you only on the download. The upload, I'm telling you, especially working remotely, is 10 times more important than the download speed that they advertise. And the reason that cable doesn't advertise is because their upload speeds are so slow. With fiber internet, because it is a much newer type of cable and a much more expensive type of cable to run the infrastructure for, your upload speeds and your download speeds are symmetrical, which means that if you're paying for 400 megabit download, you're also getting 400 megabit upload. Cable, no matter what they do, will never be able to offer symmetrical speeds. They'll never be able to give you those massive uploads because when cable was designed, everyone thought it was for TV and just pushing content into your home. So no one thought, hey, this cable could also be used for uploading information when I'm on a video call, when I'm working on files, when I'm trying to deploy something to the internet. And that is why fiber is so much better. The ACP is definitely worth looking into. If you are eligible for it, they can help offset some of your internet costs. That is another great program that New York State does, and your tax dollars at work. Allie posted a link to it. If you're not familiar with it, recommend checking it out. Could save you some money on your internet bill. Last thing, cable modems absolutely suck. When you rent a modem from Spectrum, even though it is free, even though you're not paying a monthly fee for it, it is the god awful bottom of the barrel cheapest modem that you can buy. I highly recommend investing 60 or 100 bucks into your own cable modem. Make sure that it is Spectrum compliant if you're not able to get fiber. If you can get fiber, you don't need to worry. The equipment they give you is great. But if you are renting a cable modem from Spectrum and would like a serious upgrade to your speed, invest 60 or 100 bucks in your own cable modem. You can keep that with you no matter how many times you move. And it is going to be night and day difference better, a major upgrade to your internet if you consider buying your own modem. Don't use a rental. It is 8:30. You are welcome to peace out of here if you would like. I am going to try and go through these as quickly as I can. I promise they are not as long as the other two sections. The last section is on entrepreneurialism. So if you are interested in your own business, I would stick around, or also know that this will be uploaded to YouTube. I am rushing through this because tomorrow we have Open Hack. And then next week, Laura comes in for all of the career stuff. So I don't have another chance to get through this content. So I'm going to keep plowing through it. Totally understand that if you need to drop because it is 8:30. Totally understand that if you want to catch this up on YouTube, that is totally fine. And you've got all of the slides, but I'm going to go through these as quickly as I can. Totally not offended if you need to drop. I know what 8:30 feeling is like. Any questions on what we've covered so far? Note to self, I will make sure to go through these in 2 classes instead of 1 next cohort. Stamps and envelopes, they seem really old school. There are times that you need them. That is definitely a typo in the word envelopes, but you know what I meant. Buy yourself a book of stamps, buy yourself letter envelopes. They come in handy more than you realize. Get a laser printer. Do you really need color? If you don't really need color to print things out, investing in a $100 laser printer will last you probably your lifetime. I've got a 25-year-old laser printer that my parents have that they still can get toner for, that still works great and is the most reliable printer in the world. Inkjet printers get a terrible rap that they definitely deserve, because every time that you seem to need them, they are either out of ink or won't print or have expired ink. And they're so frustrating that you just want to throw them out a window. That is because they are making money on the ink tanks. They are not making money on the printers themselves. Laser printers are fantastic. Color laser printers are very expensive. But if you can get by with just printing documents, get yourself a good all-in-one laser printer that's got a scanner in it. It will make your life so much easier to be able to print out paperwork, to be able to scan things in. Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist can be a great place to get laser printers because they are tanks and they never die. Highly recommend them. $125-ish should be your price tag for a black and white laser printer, and then like 200-ish for an all-in-one that gives you the scanner and the copier. Definitely recommend considering those if you do not have a printer, or when your inkjet inevitably dies at the worst possible time, consider replacing it with a laser. If you move, very important, change your address with USPS and the DMV, both of which can be done online. USPS gives you a year of free mail forwarding. DMV, if you get pulled over and you have the wrong address, it's just a headache to get that updated. Both can be done online. Both are free. And the mail forwarding is super important because someone may send you a bill that you don't really know is coming, and then all of a sudden that you're getting calls for collection agencies because they sent it to your old address. So if you are moving, update your address on both of them. Don't ever ignore a mail from the IRS, the state, your bank, or the DMV. That is a recipe for disaster. Don't throw it in a pile. Don't get around to it. Open it immediately. See what they want. Deal with it. Chances are waiting on dealing with those things are just going to cause you more headaches down the road. Be responsible, pony up, deal with it. Drink more water. Chances are you're not drinking too much water. Thank you, Shannon, for living my statements. There is such a thing as too much water, but it's very rare that you're probably going to hit that. This may sound like a weird statement, but bathroom breaks are great for your brain. If you're going to the bathroom every hour or two, that is a great opportunity for you to get away from your code, give your brain a recuperation time. Breaks are important for your brain, but if you're drinking enough water, chances are your bathroom breaks are going to enforce your brain breaks. If you are sending in any forms, any letters, even if it's a form for your kids at school, whether it is something that you're mailing in for your taxes, whether it is a copy of your insurance card that you're updating with the DMV, whatever it is, save a digital copy of it. Things get lost in the mail all the time. Having that digital copy means that you can just print one out and resend it in, but it also means that you have a paper trail. So if shit ever hits the fan or you ever need to get anything legal, you've got that paper trail. Questions on that? Okay. I thought I had a part 2 for that. Maybe my slides are out of order. This was another suggestion in the Slack thread. Stop comparing yourself to others. Everyone is on a different life track. Everyone has different life experiences. When you compare yourself to others, you are just going to trigger imposter syndrome. No one needs that shit. Focus on what makes you happy, both on what you're already doing and what you should be doing more of. That is a very important part of the retrospectives that I was talking about. Just a good life motto to live by. Except for me, you can always compare yourself to me because I'm awesome. Totally kidding. But looking at what your mentors are doing, figuring out what they're doing well, figuring out how they got to where they are at, and kind of trying to incorporate that into your life goals, very important. People always present their best selves on, and social media has always intensified that. You very rarely see the worst of a person. What you always see is the best of a person. So keep that in perspective. Don't fall into that trap of thinking, wow, this person is perfect. They've got an amazing life. They always have, everyone always has something negative going on, something more than they're dealing with that they are choosing not to present. So try not to go down a rabbit hole of comparing yourself there. Everyone has a unique background of experience, skills, and talents. Skills and talents are not the same. I don't know if I cover that. But anyway, sleep. One of the most important things in your life, can make or break you, and not just professionally. Learn how much sleep your body needs. Listen to your body. Experiment with your alarm. See if going to bed an hour earlier and waking up an hour earlier is something that makes you feel more productive. It does take 2 weeks on average to adjust to a new sleep pattern. So if you are making changes to your sleep, realize that you will probably be tired for 2 weeks. Don't give up on those adjustments. And after 2 weeks, if it still isn't working, just consider, you can go back to whatever, but experiment with that. The reason that I have my professional career is because I did sleep hacking with biphasic sleep. I would get up at 8 a.m. I would go to my 9-to-5 job. I would get back at 5 p.m. I would sleep from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., which is killer on your social life. But when I got up at 10 p.m., I worked from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., went back to sleep, slept 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., had an hour to get ready, showed up at work. That allowed me to learn 2 different programming languages and different frameworks at the same time. That gave my brain a total reset. I don't recommend that you do that for your entire life, but I did it after my first year of college. I did it all throughout my college. Because of that, I was able to get so much shit done. I had no friends, and don't recommend that. but it is something that if you want to play around with, if you feel like there are not enough hours in the day, it is possible to hack your sleep to get a little bit more productivity out of life. And by the way, biphasic sleep goes all the way back to the days of like Ben Franklin and Alexander Hamilton. Ben Franklin was notorious for having like midnight ramps where he was up until 3 a.m. and felt the most productive. So biphasic sleep, something to check out. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You can sleep when you're dead is a terrible, terrible phrase. Not everyone needs 8 hours. I don't want you to think that I'm preaching 8 hours of sleep, but it is important to listen to your body and prioritize sleep among all of the other many things that you need to deal with prioritizing. Okay. Oh, yep, slides were out of order. Prioritize sleep and work-life balance. Teach your kids these concepts. As your kids start becoming an adult, it is important to teach them how to be fiscally responsible. It is important to teach how to be an adult. I wish I had these slides. I wish someone told me this earlier. It's important to realize what you're doing well as an adult, what you're not doing well as an adult, and making sure that your kids are off in a better position than you were. And set a good example, right? That's the best way that your kids are going to learn from you. If you open the door and show them what, you don't necessarily have to show them all of your finances, but show them what it takes to be fiscally responsible, and you're living that life, they will see that example and live that way as well. One thing my parents did for me is they set up a custody bank account for me. And they said, hey, you should be putting money into this whenever you make money, whether it's your birthday, whether it's your chores, whatever it is. And then whenever you want to spend that money, you need to justify the purchase to us, right? You need to show that this isn't a last minute snap decision. You need to prove why this is going to be benefit to you, whatever it is. And then once they approved it, I was able to withdraw that money. That set me up for understanding the concepts of saving. Very, very good thing to consider. Skill versus talent, not the same thing. Talent is something you're born with. Skill is something that you can develop over with experience. Project and time management and engineering are all skills. They are not talents. And skills you can always get better at. So don't beat yourself up and don't say I'm not talented enough for this, especially when whatever you're saying is not actually a talent. It is a skill. It is something that you can practice. Determining what to learn is often more important than doing the learning yourself. You will always find that there is something else to learn as a developer. Don't feel that just because someone else is learning it that you need to learn it. Make comparisons between the new thing that you're learning and a skill that you already know how to do, and determine whether or not investing into that time into learning whatever the new thing is actually worth it. I do smart New Year's resolutions. Everyone does a New Year's resolution and then doesn't stick to it. I recommend reviewing them quarterly. If you're not familiar with SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based are all important things to make sure that your goals are scoped around. If you want more details about this, go Google SMART goals or read through this slide. Get an idea of how to set New Year's resolutions that are based off of all these 5 SMART goals that can really make a difference in being able to stick to that resolution. This is one of my favorite quotes that came out of this cohort. Everyone smart started off dumb. It's called learning. You will always feel dumb when you are getting started learning something. You will always have that part of the imposter syndrome kicking in. The way you work on not being dumb is continuing to learn, push through it, and you can really surprise yourself with how much you can better yourself by continuing to learn. Libraries are awesome. If you don't have a Onondaga County library card or whatever county you live in, I highly recommend getting one. Whether you know it or not, you are paying taxes that are contributing to the library system. So go get a library card. There's an awesome app. It used to be called Overdrive. It is now called Libby. It gets you access to audiobooks. I always have an audiobook that I am listening to. I am dying to read Elon Musk's new biography. Walter Isaacson is an amazing biographer. He wrote Steve Jobs' biography. I should have added that to the list, but I haven't read it yet. Yeah, good job, Max. Doing great with English. I haven't read it yet, so I can't recommend it. Here are some of my favorite books. Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, all about how people network and the different types of how our society work. Phoenix Project, all about identifying where fires are burning and how organizations run and how to optimize them. Lessons in Chemistry is a relatively new one that's been on the New York Times bestseller list for like a year now. Really, really great book. Fiction. Apple TV has a show coming out with I'm blanking on her name, Captain Marvel. Super excited for it. Great book. Little slow to get started, and you won't realize why people like it until you start reading it, and then you get into it and you're sucked in and you can't put it down. Total Money Makeover is Dave Ramsey's book. Brie Lawson, thank you. Total Money Makeover, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with Dave Ramsey's politics, but I really do like his program. If you have no idea where to get started, if you're hearing me preach about how important credit is and balancing your finances, Total Money Makeover is a relatively affordable book. You can get it from the library, and that is a really step-by-step way to get on top of your finances. Aragon is one of my favorite fiction books. And the entire inheritance cycle is amazing. Christopher Paolini is the author. He was like 14 when he wrote the first one. And the book was so successful that his parents owned a publishing business and couldn't keep publishing the book because it got so successful. The later books are way better than the original book. For the love of God, do not watch that movie. It is terrible. The books are 1,000% better. Strange Planet is one of my favorites. I actually have a couple of his. Nathan Piles is the author. Great coffee table book. Interesting perspective of looking at the world. Refactoring UI is done by the Tailwind CSS people. If you are getting into design, I highly recommend that. If you like UI design, if you're considering learning Figma or Sketch, check out Refactoring UI. That is one that I can personally loan to you because it is stupidly expensive, but I have a printed copy of that if anyone wants to borrow it. How to Money is more geared towards kids, about understanding interest rates. I actually went through that with a alumni's kid, a graduate of the program. That is a great book to read with your kids. Incentivize them to go through that. It is written at kind of a middle school education level. Great one to consider. And then the 25-minute meeting, you'll notice that all of my meetings are 25 or 55 minutes. Those are all great things to consider. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is another great book. Definitely worth checking that out. And I've had his other book on my list for a while. I got to go check it out. I've heard reviews that it's not quite as good as Aragon, so I was like hesitant to go read it, but it has been on my reading list for a while. And audiobooks, really don't underestimate audiobooks. You can get them for free from the library. You can check them out for 14 or 21 days. It is so empowering to continue to learn or to entertain yourself with something other than TV. I know our generation are big cord cutters, but audiobooks are really, really awesome. Highly recommend them. I have a whole section in here of dysfunctional lifestyles. If you think that you may have a dysfunctional lifestyle, it is important to be introspective. Look at how you are living your life, identifying what's causing it, working on goals to prevent those dysfunctional lifestyles, identifying when others are living dysfunctional lifestyles, whether that's friends and families. It is very hard to break free of a dysfunctional lifestyle because it is generational. However, it is possible to do it. Having a steady paying job is one of the best ways of going about that. If you are constantly asking yourself, why do I constantly have to deal with bad things that are happening to me? It's worth investing time and possibly professional help into answering that question. And I have a video of, after this, of like, I think it's 6 different dysfunctional lifestyle patterns that cause it to go on generationally. In the slides, again, in the I got the hiccups. In the PDF, you won't be able to play this video, but you will be able to click on this link and watch that video. It's only a couple-minute video, something to consider living dysfunctional lifestyles. Okay, promise I'm at the end. I will be done by 9, come hell or high water. Entrepreneurialism, Rain, this is going to touch on you a little bit. If you are a contractor, you get paid as a 1099. That means that they cannot dictate what hours you work. That means that they cannot force you to use company equipment. But the W-2 is, you can be an hourly W-2. That means that you are on payroll. If you are a 1099, you will not have taxes withheld from your paycheck like you most likely will for a W-2. Your W-2 withholding can be wrong, but 9 times out of 10, you will have some withholding happening from your W-2 taxes. When you're paid as a contractor, when they are not bringing you onto payroll, when they're not paying you through ADP or Gusto or any of those big payroll providers, when they're just cutting you a check and handing it to you, you are getting paid as a 1099 contractor. Withholding will not come out of those paychecks. The rough rule of thumb is that you should roughly be withholding 30% of your income as a 1099. Because you're not having the withholding happen, you should be paying quarterly taxes to both the state and to the feds. That's something an accountant can help you set up. But just because you are getting a check, just because you're getting paid from someone, does not mean that your taxes are getting withheld. If your taxes are not getting withheld, you really, really, really need to be paying estimated taxes so that the IRS does not come for you when April 15th rolls around. When you are paid as a 1099 and it's not the same as getting paid as a W-2, your employer pays roughly half of your employee income, your employer taxes for you. So there can be a 15 to 30% difference between what you earn as a W-2 in terms of net pay and what you're earning as 1099, which is more gross pay. And then benefits matter, right? So 401k match, how much they're paying into your health insurance, time off, all of that stuff plays into a W-2 versus a 1099, something to think about if you are starting getting your own business started or are doing work as a contractor. There are a couple different company types. DBA is the easiest to get set up. Don't fall into that trap because there's a ton of liability that comes with being a DBA. A DBA is doing business as, so you can start doing business. You can open a bank account under that business name. You register that with Onondaga County or whatever county you live in. However, if you do something business related for a client and that client comes back and sues you, if you are a DBA, they can go after all of your personal assets as well, cars, your home, any retirement savings that you have, lots of legal liability that comes with a DBA. An LLC, I believe, is like $250, and then you got to pay the publishing fee on top of that. It is worth it. An LLC is a limited liability company. That is how Hack Upstate is organized. It shields all of the legal, not all of the legal, but most of the legal liability. So if you do something wrong and you get sued, they cannot come after your personal assets. It is a little bit harder to get set up. There's a stupid, archaic newspaper publishing requirement in New York State that I could fill an entire 3-hour rant on of how stupid it is. But an LLC is definitely worth doing. When you start making more than about $75,000 a year, as an entrepreneur, it is worth considering looking at an S-Corp. An S-Corp basically allows you to take distributions without having to pay the 15% employer tax on that. Do not have the time to get into that, but you can, in New York State, set yourself up as an LLC, start making money, file your taxes on a Schedule C, which is relatively easy. And then when you start making over that $75,000 threshold, consider electing your tax status as an S-Corp. It is a legal loophole of the law that allows you to not have to pay payroll taxes on all of your distributions that you're taking from the company. S corp complicates things, but it is a loophole, and you can save money once you get around that $75,000 threshold. LLC, you can file online for yourself. You don't need an attorney. It is super easy to set up. You can open a bank account. I use Novo, which is an all online business bank account. Lots of different options there, but if you feel more comfortable, you can file that legal entity through your attorney or a attorney, a small business attorney, but the LLC is super easy. You can finally file it online. I would just go that route, but again, not giving legal advice, and you are forming a legal entity. So because of that, if you feel more comfortable with an attorney, you are more than welcome to. Running a business, you don't need QuickBooks. Just use a spreadsheet, track your income and expenses down the road. If you take on investment money, if you need to report out your finances, if you go for an S corp, at that point you can consider QuickBooks. But QuickBooks is really fucking complicated to learn and way overkill, especially if you are running a smaller business. So TurboTax is your friend. You can file your Schedule C if you elect to go an LLC at the end of the year on your taxes. Once you get into an S corp, that's a different territory, and it may be worth using a tax professional or an accountant. But if you have an LLC, you can do your taxes on your own. Communication, most important part of running a business and keeping a client happy. If you are falling behind on anything, just communicate, over communicate. When you start getting stressed over a deliverable, it is a natural defense mechanism to just shut down and not want to communicate that deficiency. That is not the right reaction. Communicate through it, talk through your client. That is super important. Use your project management tools. Consider sharing them with a client so that they can see what you're working on and get a snapshot of the project. You don't need any expensive, complicated invoicing tools. I use Square Invoices. Stripe has a great invoice tool. QuickBooks, if you're buying into that ecosystem, you can invoice. I know people who just use a spreadsheet and send out a spreadsheet. All of that is definitely an option. And then finally, 3 minutes to spare. I might actually make it. The general flow of how you work as a developer. PayPal invoicing is good too. And yes, Rain, track your expenditures, track every expense. That will become helpful at tax time. I do all of that in just a spreadsheet, and that has been always more than enough for me. If you can't tell, I'm not a QuickBooks fan. If you're running like a $250,000 business, there may be a justification for QuickBooks. If you've got a lot of people on payroll, there may be a justification for QuickBooks. If you need payroll, I can highly recommend Gusto. But QuickBooks is not something that you need to invest in day one of your business to get started. And finally, RFP is a request for a proposal. That is more used on the government side or the grant side or a government contractor side. It is basically saying we need to hire someone. We are requesting that you generate a proposal that says how you would go about meeting these requirements that we have. You make that proposal and submit it. They agree to that proposal. Then this goes, statement of work is a contract that's saying, here's everything that's laid out. Here are the deliverables of what I'm going to give you, what the timeline is for giving you that. It is a contract that includes the payment terms. Payment terms of a net 30 or a net 60 are very common when you're billing a business. That means once you send them the invoice, they have 30 or 60 days from the day they get the invoice to actually pay that invoice. So that is something to consider. But anyway, your statement of work is that is your legal contract. That is laying out everything that you are planning on doing, the deliverables for that, making sure all the requirements are covered there. When there is scope creep is when a client comes back to you and goes, hey, this is great. I have a whole nother page that I would like you to do. You can go back to your statement of work and say, this isn't in the statement of work. The scope of this project is growing bigger. We just need to have something in writing that's agreeing that this will be an additional hourly rate, or that we need to agree to an additional project term from there. Rain just posted a link. For women and minority business development, there are a ton of great resources to help you get started as an entrepreneur. A lot of them are grant funded and available to you for free. The Tech Garden has a great resources. And there is also the WISE Center. I'm not going to get it right. WISE, working in support of education. That is a great program as well to get involved in. Did I say WISE before you beat me to it, Rain?
You probably did, yeah.
Okay. Did you have any comments, because I cut you off earlier, that I didn't cover for entrepreneurialism? Awesome. Okay, I said 9 o'clock. I promised that I would shut up at 9. It is 9 o'clock. Sorry that I went half hour over. All these slides are in Slack. I will stick around for a minute or two in case anyone has comments. Hopefully I will see most of you at Open Hack tomorrow. Next week is in person at the computer lab in the library, second floor, in the back right of the library. Please try and be there on time for Laura. And I will try and take a copy of the meeting chat and share that with the Slack channel for all the great resources that are in there. Have an awesome night, everyone. Sorry for keeping you over.